That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about The Iron Claw, the third film directed by Sean Durkin, which A24 just had a premiere for in Dallas, Texas, and is releasing theatrically December 22nd, 2023.
Do I know another of Sean's films?
We reviewed his last film, The Nest, with Jude Law and Kerry, which I also liked, but I'm probably the biggest fan of his debut, 2011's Martha, Marcy May, Marlene, starring wonderful Elizabeth Olsen. I'm also a great fan of his 2013 miniseries, Southcliffe. If you haven't seen that, highly recommended. And he also directed 3 episodes of the Dead Ringers Cronenberg reboot.
The Iron Claw is the true story of the inseparable Von Erich brothers who made history in the intensely competitive world of professional wrestling in the early 1980s. What's your pull quote?
Zack Efron impresses in Durkin's sprawling patriarchal wrestling saga, which plays with the kind of savage folly and hubris befitting a Greek tragedy.
Mine. The Iron Claw excels with top-notch performances and fascinating subjects, if only it were more focused. I did really enjoy this movie.
I did as well.
So the story is about this family. It's mom, dad, and 5 brothers, but we only really deal with 4. And the 4 brothers are...
Kevin Von Erich, played by Zac Efron. Kerry, played by Jeremy Allen White. David, played by Harris Dickinson. And Mike, played by Stanley Simons. And the parents are played by Maura Tierney and Holt McCallany.
So Holt is the dad, and we see that when he was younger, he was a wrestler, and a pretty good one. He had invented this move called the Iron Claw, which I don't quite understand how it works. It looks like he's just like grabbing someone's forehead.
And supposedly squeezing hard.
Yeah, like smooshing their brain, I don't know. But anyway, we also learned that when he was younger, he wanted to be a pro football player. That didn't go anywhere. He got into wrestling. That didn't go where he wanted to go. He did start this like minor league in Dallas, I believe. But we see now that he has these children, these 4 adult sons we're working with. He really pushes them all to be like the best of the best. He has this mantra about it, like about being successful and working hard. And so all of his sons are doing something. So Zac Efron's a wrestler. Harris Dickinson is also wrestling. Kerry, played by Jeremy
Allen White.
He is an Olympian. He is going to be going to the Olympics in Moscow because he throws the discus. And the youngest son, Mike, they're working on it.
He's artistically inclined.
He likes music, but of course his dad is like, you got to bulk up and find a sport to play. And I would say that the dad is kind of like Joe Jackson light.
Yeah.
Because he's not awful. I think they're horrible parents, but just because they're not very caring about their kids.
They are interesting parents, to be sure.
I actually think the mom is more cold than the dad.
Yeah, she's not quite like Mary Tyler Moore in Ordinary People, but she's pretty detached. It's it's surprising.
But in my pull quote, I said I wish it were more focused because it is a 2-hour plus film about a real life family who have a very interesting history. But it's like thinking about how I would tell it, I guess I would just start by saying that I guess Zac Efron is like the main focus.
Yeah.
And he explains to us that his family, the Von Erich name, is cursed. So how are they cursed? The 5th brother is actually the oldest brother, but we don't meet him as an adult because he died as a child. So there's that.
And they believe that it was the start of the curse because Fritz, the father, took his grandmother's last name to be a showman, which is interesting because this is a very patriarchal film, and it's almost it doesn't quite go there, but there's something about he's taken this a woman's last name.
Sure. So the 5th brother, the oldest, dies when he's a baby. Then, so Zac Efron, he's like the main wrestler of the group, and he gets a shot to play against the world champion through a series of steps, but it culminates in him fighting against Ric Flair, and he ends up being disqualified because he kind of loses his temper.
I think you're mixing it up. The first fight that he has that's supposed to qualify for him to have a chance at earning the title, his dad is upset with his performance at.
Right, but then he gets to fight Ric Flair.
Yes. Okay.
He's disqualified. I'm trying to say the curse. Okay. And then they get another shot to fight Ric Flair, but this time the dad is choosing Harris Dickinson. And he's told it's going to be a big thing. It's going to take a year. You're going to do all these promo fights. You're going to go to Japan and do promo. And we see during that year period that Zac Efron gets married to his little sweetheart, played by
Pam, played by Lily James.
And at his wedding, Harris Dickinson is like in the bathroom vomiting blood. And Zac is telling him, like, you need to slow down. And then we find out just all of a sudden that Harris dies in a hotel room in Japan from like intestinal issues. So there's that. Then, because Harris couldn't make it to that championship fight with Ric Flair, they get a chance to pick another brother, and the dad doesn't choose Zac again. He chooses Jeremy. Mm-hmm. Jeremy fights him and wins. So now they do have a world champion in the family. But then we see him come home and he's like, I'm having a hard time, like shutting my mind down. I'm still hype. He goes for a motorcycle ride, gets into an accident, loses his damn foot. So that's a tragedy. But then he's able to get back in the ring and he ends up like transferring to the WWF because they've been playing in the NWA, the National Wrestling Association.
I always think of another NWA.
Yeah. But Jeremy, Kerry, the one with the missing foot, ends up becoming a WWF champion. But I guess like he has a lot of trauma and depression related to his accident. He's in a lot of pain. He takes his own life. Mm-hmm. Then the youngest brother, Mike, his dad pushes him to be a wrestler, and he does. And then during one match, he like falls and kind of hurts his shoulder, goes in for like a minor surgery, and due to complications, ends up in a coma. So when he wakes up, he has to rehabilitate, and I guess he's depressed.
Well, he also has some, I think, brain issues because he had a fever of 107 for 2 hours during that surgery. So
yeah, he seems like he's altered.
He's altered.
Yeah. He ends up committing suicide as well.
And I think technically he kills himself before Kerry does.
He does. Mm-hmm. So of the 5 brothers, 4 are dead, and we're left with Zac Efron. And he, towards the end of the film, we see that his dad left him the wrestling organization he started.
The Sportatorium.
And Zac sells that. Mm-hmm. And then that's it. And then we see that, because this is a real family, Zac's character is still alive. The parents are still alive.
He bought a ranch and all the kids and grandkids live there, which is kind of the fantasy he talks about on his first date.
Early on, yeah. So there is a lot going on, and I feel like this would have worked better as a mini-series, or maybe we get an episode dedicated to each brother. But I really think the more interesting angle of this family story is the parents.
I mean, they are... It's almost astounding, but the way that they're using these kids almost as a meal ticket, and they're loving enough, and it's clear that the boys are competing against each other for their dad's affection, which he has orchestrated on purpose. But they're parents that don't want to deal with any kind of hiccups or issues whatsoever.
No, because even for the 2 who kill themselves,
there are warning signs.
There are warning signs. Like Zac tells his mom, hey, I think you're pushing, like dad's pushing Mike too hard. Can you talk to your husband about harassing my brother? And the mom goes, that's between y'all.
We're late for church. I'm
not dealing with this. And then when Kerry calls Zac one night saying like, I can't do this anymore. Like basically I'm in crisis. Zac calls their dad. And the dad's like, well, that's between you 2.
He's like, he called you.
It's just astonishing. And the mom, I think that actress does a really good job because she has an affect about her that seems like, she just seems broken in some way.
Maura Tierney. I mean, people probably know her best from ER, but she's also in Liar Liar. She plays Tina Fey's sister.
Oh, that's right.
In Baby Mama.
She's very good, but I was so fascinated by her as a mother. I was fascinated by her relationship with Holt. Mm-hmm. Because it seems like they are, like it's not a good marriage, but they deal with each other.
Their values are interesting because she's Christian and she doesn't want her youngest going on a college campus at night
to perform a paid gig.
But yet, that's the limitations of your motherliness.
So I think this family's super interesting and their story is very fascinating, and I can see why someone would make a movie. I just think that it needed more.
I don't know, but Zac Efron is pretty damn good and eventually becomes, I think, the focus of it.
Oh, he's the best part. Mm-hmm. And if we find out that he gets nominated for an Academy Award, I would not be surprised. And I was we were talking about other actors who are able to present that physique, like a Stallone or a Schwarzenegger. Arnold, like Zac Efron, is pumped up.
He's transformed.
He's
yes.
fully transformed physically. I mean, I think there's a lot of commentary lately about his appearance. I would assume that he got on steroids for this role, and that's why his face looks so different. Because now that he's doing press, it looks like everything's settled down, and he looks less like angular. But yeah, the fact that he's able to achieve that look, and then there were so many moments in the film when I was almost teary-eyed watching him because he just seems so sweet. And
there's a vulnerability
Yes.
there because he's also taken on the role of parenting the other brothers that his parents have decided that they are not going to do. His hair. He could, if somebody wanted to remake Fritz Lang's Nibelungen, the silent film from the 20s,
I'd have to look that
he looked
up.
like, he kind of looks like, that haircut reminds me of the Paul Richter actor.
Or what's Lord Farquhar or
Yeah.
something like? I mean, it's horrible, but I guess that's what the real guy kind of looked like. But speaking of the parents, this is in the trailer, but in the beginning we see the dad at the table with his 4 sons, and he tells them like, well, I like this one number 1, you next, but that ranking can always change. And I think that was the perfect scene to show what the dad is like. He seems loving and caring, but he's no nonsense. Like, all he cares about is
He wants that title that he couldn't
success.
achieve.
Yeah.
He's living his dreams through his children.
So it would appear that while Zack is clearly like the strongest and most capable wrestler, he's not the most charismatic. And in the world of wrestling where Zack's character is a really good speech explaining to his wife, then girlfriend, because she says, isn't the wrestling fake? And he gets her together in a way because he's like, well, it's about like a performance, and based on your performance, you move up in the ranks. And I thought that was the perfect way to explain that sport. Because it is produced.
It's making the crowd love you, though.
Yeah. But the irony of that is that Zach's character, that man, is not very charismatic. We get a scene where he's trying to film a promo for an upcoming match, and he just can't do it. Who is charismatic is Harris Dickinson's character. And that's why he gets plucked next to fight Ric Flair. Because you alluded to this, that initial match when he gets a shot at the title, Zach is like, he wins, but then he can't really talk to the or no, he doesn't win. The guy runs off and Zach can't really explain to the crowd what happened. So then Harris grabs the mic, and it's clear that he's the star. So I thought that was very interesting. But yeah, Zach.
Well, because we learned that Kevin's, maybe that's not his passion, maybe that's not his dream. What he likes about it, which he very clearly tells Pam, is that he gets to be with his brothers.
Which I thought was so sweet. He just wants to make his dad happy, and he loves being around his brothers. And it was really fun seeing the brothers together because they seem like they are very close. But, so one thing that was really distracting to me, so it doesn't feel very focused. Also, at a point, because I love the way it's shot, and a lot of the fights are shot in that 80s style with the graphics, like as if we're looking at the match on TV. And at one point, they say that Zach's character is 6'2".
Yes, they do.
And that was early on in the film. And for the rest of the movie, I was so distracted.
You got caught up on that.
Because he is not 6'2", and if he is, that means like Harris Dickinson is 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
Like, it just...
Yeah, but that probably because the real life person is that. But yeah, it would have been nice if they could have worked a way around having to put those kind of stats on there. But the cinematographer is Hungarian, Matthias Erdely, who has shot, I think, both of Laszlo Nemes' films, Son of Saul and is it Sunset? Yeah, I think it looks really good and fits the period.
Another thing that I'm curious what you think about it. So after the brothers die, after the final brother kills himself, then we get a scene where that brother is on a boat.
Yeah, like almost crossing the river Styx, really.
And he sees his other dead brothers like on the pier. And so now all 4 brothers, including the little one, are together, like in the afterlife. And they even say, oh, you must be my younger brother, whatever. And they give a hug. I thought that felt kind of like...
The resonance is supposed to be when we cut back to Zac Efron and his brothers laid out on the family table, and he's the last surviving brother. And I think there is some power in that juxtaposition, but I think you brought up a good point after the screening where it's almost like I wish that had been the first scene and we're not quite understanding this reunion.
Yes.
And then later on after Kerry's suicide,
we realize they're all dead.
Then that would be apparent.
Yes, that's what I thought. But, so while I thought that scene was crunchy or maybe like or placed in the structure of the film, it was followed up by, I thought, a really emotional scene because we see Zack with his 2 sons, like, because now he's able to buy the house he wanted because he sold his dad's company. And his sons are just playing, and it's clear that he's a very loving dad to his sons. And he starts crying. And the sons come up like, "What's wrong, Dad?" And
they're like, "Do you know why you're sad?"
Yeah, and he's like, "Well, I just realized I'm not a brother anymore because they're all dead." And the sons are so sweet, and they say, "Well, we'll be your brother, and we're here for you." And they're hugging him, and he's crying. I thought that was some really good acting from the kids and
him. Well, also the fact that he's like, "Oh, you shouldn't see me like this because men aren't supposed to cry," and the kids kind of scoff at that, like, well, everybody cries.
They're like, "We cry all the time."
But it's also a testament of just how the masculinity aspect of these brothers, but how he has been conditioned even beyond that since a child.
I was emotional a few times, specifically with Zack's character and how vulnerable he was. I think he did an excellent job in a film that I would say is quite good.
I agree, but it has this ambitious scope of like early Michael Cimino. Like I thought of The Deer Hunter a few times. I mean, the wedding scene isn't quite at the same level, but there are those elements there and the depth of characterization that this really kind of old school new American filmmaking from the 70s is kind of how this film felt. I also thought it felt like the gender reversal of something like Denise Gamze Ergoven's Mustang from 2015, where I think it's 5 sisters, each who are being kind of sold off into marriage.
Oh. Also during the wedding scene, we see Zack dance with his bride and his brothers, and I thought that was cute. Seeing this like bulky guy, because Zack Efron is a dancer, so it's fun to see him. It's almost like he was trying to not be too good, but I thought it was cute. What would you give The Iron Claw?
I would give it 3.5.
I would give The Iron Claw 3.5 out of 5. I thought it was very good. Anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.